specifically that we came into these negotiations understanding that the landscape across the game has changed and that more young players more than ever are entering the game and producing at high levels than we've ever seen before. We as players wanted to address that and obviously raise their level of compensation up relative to league revenues so that better reflected that compensation level. And so as we navigated through the process, we still feel there's dollars to be allocated towards them that would fairly compensate their contributions on the field more so than what's on the table at this point. And as players, we recognize that and continue to fight for those guys, that it's not about Andrew or me in the free agent level, that it's us as the free agents looking backwards and realizing that we need to allocate more of those resources to them.
It's not just money. The money can be important in order to have the market operate in a functional way, in which we've seen abuses and we've seen trends take advantage of maybe places in which players are not receiving as much as they're contributing, as well as we have been screaming for years about competition issues, and those are important to us. This is not just about shifting pieces of the pie around. This is about getting the game that we love to work and operate as best as it can, and go out there and perform, and let us focus on what we like to do, and that's compete.
This can be for anyone. Actually, I have two. Rob said something in his press conference about there being wiggle room. Is that an indication sort of that this wasn't the end point they were going to end at? That's not a great way of phrasing that. Did he indicate that to you, or did Dan or whoever indicate that there was wiggle room?
Hi, Hannah. I mean, it's fair to say that today they were very clear that the last thing they gave us was their best and final offer. They used the words best and final, as Dan did several times. But to be clear, as I understood that meant best and final before making their decision to announce canceling games. I assume they're not done negotiating. I hope they're not done negotiating. They have a legal obligation to negotiate. So I assume it's not best and final forever, but they were very clear that what they gave us today was best and final for today before making their decision to take down some games. And
they've been pretty clear that games that are canceled will not be made up and players will not be paid for that. How do you guys sort of see the schedule factoring into the negotiations going forward?
I'll just say that their decision to say they won't reschedule games if games are canceled, or they won't pay players for those games that are canceled, is wholly their position. They're not legally required to take those positions. It would be our position in the event of games being canceled that as a feature of any deal for us to come back, that we would be asking for compensation or to have those games rescheduled. So again, they're free to take that position. We would have a different position. And of course, last year, as I think they actually proposed delaying the season by a month, and they actually proposed rescheduling games to get 154 in and to pay players for 162 for playing 154. So they can do it. There's a precedent for it.
To be clear, are you saying you would not agree to a deal that doesn't compensate players for 162 games?
Our position is that if the league decides unilaterally to pull down games and then we have a deal, that players should get compensated for those games.
The statement today said that you guys think that the owners are trying to break the union, and I'd love to hear from anybody who wants it, but particularly from Max and Andrew. Is there something about the way these negotiations have gone, something you've seen or heard or felt that tells you that? Where is that coming from?
It's not as simple as this negotiation. We've seen free agent markets not operate in the way that we expect them to. We've seen parts of the system not function the way they're supposed to, and the tactics that we have seen when it does come to sort things out have been, needless to say, frustrating at times. So you start to wonder when you see, obviously COVID was a horrible situation for everybody in every place, but the return to work, the struggles we had with that. And, when we sit down and try to lay things out and work on the forthcoming CBA and address these issues, to have the difficulty in getting to the table and actually communicating, you start to wonder exactly how you're being looked at by the other side.
To echo that, it's more about unifying the union and understanding the desires from everybody in our group, and talking to all the guys over here and understanding that we were fighting together as one. We all understood the problems that were within the game that needed to be corrected. And together, we all together believed in what we were fighting for, and all the way to the end here of making sure that everybody understood what we were trying to accomplish, and that everybody wanted to accomplish the same goals for everybody.
Just real quick, as far as player unity goes and the length of time this could go, are there discussions about how long guys are prepared to not play?
We're prepared. We've seen this coming in a sense. It's unfortunate, but this isn't new to us. This is not shocking. It's, again, unfortunate, but our communication, our willingness to see each other's point of views and to find solutions and to fight for what's right is nothing like I've seen before. I can tell you that.
Right, and this has been making in the years of seeing things that have happened over the course, specifically of this last CBA, things that have happened to different players that has made us outraged in certain situations that we absolutely have to have corrections, and that's why we feel necessary to be able to continue this fight.
Bruce, you said before how you would now, you're for pay, back pay, potentially service time now becomes a position that you're going to have to take, but you're now adding more big issues to a long list of issues you already have. So what gives you the confidence that there is a better deal that could come your way?
Well, I think it's like any labor situation. I mean, our whole labor process basically plays out this way. We have our positions. We feel strongly about them. The players feel strongly about them. We think they're fair. We think they're reasonable. We believe we've been negotiating in good faith from the beginning. The league obviously has a different view, and this is the way the labor process plays out. The league is attempting, as Tony said, to use its economic weapons, and the players, as the guys have said, are unified in fighting for what's right here. So, the alternative is to take a deal that we and the players feel is not a fair deal. That's really the only alternative. Either take a deal that the players don't feel is fair, or continue to fight. At the end of the day, as you know, it's the league's lockout. They can decide to end it whenever they want. So players really don't have much of a choice in that. But players, as Andrew said, and Max, are committed to fighting for a deal that they think is fair.
And to that point, I'm just curious, at any point during this week, was there ever a conversation about the league lifting the lockout in exchange for some sort of no strike commitment or anything like that?
No.
All right, well, there you have it. MLBPA in their response to Rob Manfred, the theme, we will keep fighting. This was MLB's final offer, which the players rejected unanimously. 12-team postseason, no changes to CBT threshold, $5 million increase on pre-arbitration bonus pool, 5 lottery slots in the draft, and the minimum salary starting at $700,000, increasing $10,000 each year. We're going to keep you updated on the latest here on HQ as we wait for a resolution for this baseball lockout.
Came into these negotiations understanding that the landscape across the game has changed, and that more young players more than ever are entering the game and producing at high levels than we've ever seen before. We as players wanted to address that and obviously raise their level of compensation up relative to league revenues, so that better reflected that compensation level. And so as we navigated through the process, we still feel that there's dollars to be allocated towards them that would fairly compensate their contributions on the field more so than what's on the table at this point. And as players, we recognize that and continue to fight for those guys, that it's not about Andrew or me in the free agent level, that it's us as the free agents looking backwards and realizing that we need to allocate more of those resources to them. And talking to all the guys over here and understanding that we were fighting together as one, we all understood the problems that were within the game that needed to be corrected. And together, we all together believed in what we were fighting for, and all the way to the end here, of making sure that everybody understood what we were trying to accomplish, and that everybody wanted to accomplish the same goals for everybody. Of seeing things that have happened over the course, specifically of this last CBA, things that have happened to different players that has made us outraged in certain situations that we absolutely have to have corrections, and that's why we feel necessary to be able to continue this fight.
Obviously, a 14-team postseason meant more money towards the players, and I understand the competitive issue, but wasn't the money maybe worth the two teams, considering all the economic issues at hand?
Well, it really became down to a format issue. In a 14-team playoff structure, we felt like competition could be eroded in that scenario, and we had specific examples of different players who spoke up that highlighted that specifically for that reason. And through the working with the economists on the union staff, we felt like we had devised a format that would incentivize you would incentivize competition throughout all the seeds, and especially for division winners. And that was very, very important to us, because when we play 162 games, when you're out there, and I know we're all trying to win that division. I mean, that's such an important piece to this when we're out there playing the games to have that remain true. If that piece wasn't in the puzzle in the 14-team playoff structure, we didn't see the necessary that home field advantage. Solely home field advantage was going to be the necessary piece to try to go out there and win your division. And so for that reason, that's why a 12-team format made more sense to us.
The bye for the division winners wasn't an incentive enough?
But then continuing on from those division winners down, we didn't see the proper incentive for those other two division winners.
How important was the luxury tax threshold? In the sense when you play for the Nationals, big payroll, Detroit, Dodgers last year, and now the Mets. How big of an issue is this for you and Andrew as far as free agency?
Well, we look at the competitive balance tax as a breakaway spending mechanism. That's how this thing was originally negotiated. And when you look at the history of baseball here and our labor, we're not seeing that function as breakaway spending. We're seeing it act as a salary cap, and no other way can be shown point blank and simple than the San Diego Padres having a higher payroll than the New York
series of the regular season, and those games are officially canceled. We're prepared to continue negotiations. We've been informed that the MLBPA is headed back to New York, meaning that no agreement is possible until at least Thursday. As such, camps could not meaningfully operate until at least March 8th, leaving only 23 days before the scheduled opening day. The clubs and our owners fully understand just how important it is to our millions of fans that we get the game on the field as soon as possible. To that end, we want a bargain and we want an agreement with the Players Association as quickly as possible.
Let's bring in Tim Kirkjian. Tim, how damaging are today's events for the sport here long term?
Well, Kevin, I'm really concerned about the game long term. I mean, coming into this offseason, baseball was in a really bad spot. Attendance is down, ratings are down, interest is down in the game. I love the game more than anyone, but people out there don't love baseball like they did, say, 20 years ago. And now we're looking at a potential long lockout that could cancel a whole bunch of games. 2 months ago, I had a source tell me, look, the owners are going to do what they want to do. And if they play 140 games, they're going to be fine with that. We're going to start on May the 1st. That's what I was told 2 months ago by someone who kind of knows. Well, now we're to the point where if we play May the 1st, we have to be happy about that. Because at this point, with no meetings scheduled, this could be longer than May 1st, and that really scares me, and it really should scare the industry, which cannot afford this at a time when people have all sorts of other things to do with their money and their time.
As a former player, as a fan, for our game, today is a sad day. We came to Florida to navigate or to negotiate for a fair collective bargaining agreement. Despite meeting daily while here in Florida, there is still work that needs to be done. We are seeking improvements to our CBA because significant improvements are needed. We've made no mistake about that fact over the course of the last 3 or 4 years based on what we've seen on the field and off the field. It's against that backdrop of growing revenues and record profits for owners in the league that players seek and deserve nothing more than fundamental fairness. Players want to play. We all know that. But the reason we're not playing is simple. A lockout is the ultimate economic weapon. Let me repeat that. A lockout is the ultimate economic weapon. In a $10 billion industry, the owners have made a conscious decision to use this weapon against the greatest asset they have, the players. But the group won't be intimidated. I've seen more unity over the last few years than at any time in our recent history. Our guys care deeply about the game, care deeply about the fans, and care deeply about our player fraternity. And they are focused on improving the rights and benefits for today's generation of player and for the generations to come. Needless to say, we remain committed to the bargaining process and getting back on the field as soon as possible.
Answer it. I mean, you guys knew coming in this was going to be contentious and they weren't going to kind of roll over for you, but was there anything about the way the owners approached this or their priorities that surprised you and complicated this even more than you thought?
Thank you for the question, and I suppose I should have introduced the folks that are here on the dais. To my right, Andrew Miller. To my left, Bruce Meyer with the PA, and Max Scherzer on his left. In regard to the process and what we've seen, the entire process has been an interesting one, to say the least. In a world where you are looking to make changes, make adjustments, make improvements based on what it is you're seeing, you understand that you need as much time as possible to work through those things. It's why we started the process when we did in April. It's why we made the core economic proposals that we did in the first part of May. It's why we remained available, whether on Zoom or as the pandemic afforded us the opportunity to meet in person. We made ourselves available then. It's why we sequestered ourselves in a hotel in Dallas with the hope of working toward an agreement. It's why we stood ready for 6 weeks after the lockout on December 1st, ready to have a discussion. It is remarkably interesting against the backdrop of the things that needed to be worked through to find ourselves on February 28th, over the course of the last week in West Palm Beach, working through the issues that, quite honestly, needed to be and could have been and should have been discussed in more depth.
No deal, no baseball. That the news coming out of Jupiter tonight. Talks to get Major League Baseball players in the spring training ballparks and start the season failed to meet an owner's deadline. It's an impact that's being felt across our area from Port St. Lucie to West Palm Beach. And WPTV's Matt Sesney's been following all this. He's live at Roger Dean Stadium. Matt?
Well, Michael, the change of scenery to have these talks here at Roger Dean Stadium to try to end this lockout obviously didn't work after over a week of negotiations here at the ballpark's offices. So now games start getting canceled and spring training ballparks like this one stay dark and locked up.
I had hoped against hope that I would not have to have this particular press conference.
Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred spoke right after the negotiations broke down at Roger Dean Stadium. The result, the cancellation of the start of the season and another portion of spring training, which keeps moving back as deadlines keep passing.
As such, camps could not meaningfully operate until at least March 8th, leaving only 23 days before the scheduled opening day.
For 9 days, the owners and the players, represented in small negotiating groups, met at the ballpark in Abacoa and were not able to reach any agreement on financial issues, on things like minimum salary and penalties on teams that spend too much on big-name players, such as new Jupiter resident Max Scherzer of the New York Mets.
Today is a sad day.
The head of the players' union put the blame on owners, and owners sent the blame back to the players. In fact, the only thing both sides seemed to agree on was they were disappointing the fans.
I want to assure our fans that our failure to reach an agreement was not due to a lack of effort by either party.
If you love baseball the way players do, if you love baseball the way fans do, it's hard not to be sad with where we are on March 1st, 2022.
And indeed, that's where we are. There's supposed to be games scheduled here, but they're not happening. It was mentioned that both sides may actually start talking again on Thursday in New York, but at this point, there's no real idea as to when any deal can be done and what kind of spring training could possibly be salvaged here.
Deal. Disappointing. Players just rejected Major League Baseball's, quote, best and final offer to end the lockout. WBZ Sports Director Steve Burton joins us. And Steve, now we find out if the owners actually are going to make good on their threat to cancel games.
This is unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable they can't figure this out. For the first time since 1995, folks, baseball games might be canceled because of labor unrest. The owners originally said if they didn't get a deal done by last night, regular season games would be lost. Well, they didn't. So the deadline was pushed to 5 o'clock today. But in the end, they just couldn't come to an agreement. Two sides are still far apart on things like luxury tax thresholds, minimum salaries, pre-arbitration bonus pools. You could sense things weren't going well this afternoon when a spokesman for the owners said the players were changing their tone. The players were not happy to hear them say that and felt like the owners were going to blame them if they couldn't reach a deal. Canceling games is still the owner's call. They don't have to do so, but they would need a deal soon for players to get ready for the season and for teams to fill out their rosters. So now what? The Red Sox are scheduled to open the regular season on March 31st against the Rays at Fenway. Not so sure that's going to happen now. Guys, back to you.
Gotta love two groups of rich people.
Unbelievable.
Can't get along, fans suffer. Steve,
Wow.
thank you.
All right.
If you don't want to get benched this season, don't strike out. Hit that like button, swing at the subscribe button, and hit a home run on that notification bell. Thank you for watching the Improbable podcast. Have an improbably awesome rest of your day.